we're just going to go ahead and get started. So just very briefly as an intro, welcome. This is a Q&A session for the 2023 to 24 California Farm to School Incubator Grant Program. We're so excited that you're interested and that you're joining us for this session. Applications are due by 5 p.m. on April 4th, 2024. So coming up in just about a month. Just as a friendly reminder, this Q&A session is being recorded and will be posted on our grant program webpage later on after this call. And before we dive in, just 2 links, and we'll put these in the chat as well in case they're helpful. The first link is the grant program webpage. So this is where all of the resources and information about the grant are posted. It includes the request for applications, the links to the online app portals, the PDFs of the app questions and review criteria, and Q&A, FAQs, all of that great stuff. And then there's also a grant info session recording on that webpage. So that was a few weeks ago. We did like an overview of the grant program. So if you're interested in that recording as a reference, that's available on the webpage. And then with that, I'm just going to skip to the end and just dive right into questions and hand the floor over to you all. So any questions that you have, please use the raise hand feature. If you go to reactions, there should be a button you can click if you'd like to ask your question verbally here. And you're also welcome to put questions in the chat, and we'll go through those as well. So with that, I'll pause and stop talking and open it up to questions.
Sonia,
oh, yeah,
I have some questions. Yeah, could I go ahead and ask?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, I do have the document regarding, the decision tree eligibility with track we should be applying for. Could you help me distinguish between track 1 and 3? And how do you define a tribal school?
Oh, great question. Yeah, absolutely. So in track 1, eligibility is defined as a public school district, county office of education, charter school, or tribal school, such as those like administered through the Bureau of Indian Education. That's a school food authority currently operating the National School Lunch Program. However, there is also a note in the RFA. Let me find it. Here we go. Oops, sorry. I can't pull up the exact language right now, but it's something about how if you are a tribal school that is not a California School Food Authority that currently operates the National School Lunch Program, please reach out to us and share about your school and the school meal programs you do offer. And the CDFA will be determining eligibility of those tribal schools on an individual basis. So they may still be eligible. We just ask and encourage that you please reach out to us to describe a little bit more about your school so that we can learn more, because we understand that we still have a lot to learn, and we're excited to learn more about different tribal schools throughout the state.
The email in the chat, or is it the email at the bottom here that we need to use?
Exactly, yeah, and I'll put
that's the email.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put it in the chat too in case that's easier to click. Oh, and thanks so much. Rachel put that language I couldn't quite find in the chat. So yeah, it says, note about tribal schools. The CDFA acknowledges that tribal governments and tribal-based nonprofit organizations may operate school meal programs outside of traditional USDA school meal programs like the National School Lunch Program. So beyond this eligibility criteria here, the CDFA will determine eligibility of tribal schools on an individual basis and encourages interested applicants to connect via email at that email address. So yeah, we would love to hear more from you. And then same with track 3. If you're a child care center and you're not quite sure if the child care center would be eligible to apply, then yeah, please reach out to us and share a little bit more about the school, and we'd be super happy to help.
So just based on the title and the description, it looks like track 1 is for higher than daycare, and then track 3 is for daycare.
Oh yeah,
more or
great
less. Is
question.
that the audience that we are targeting?
Yeah, so track one, and then I'll go to track three. So track one is the TK to 12 farm to school procurement and education grant. So that would be yeah, K-12, and then also like sometimes like a school district has TK or like preschool as part of their school district, then a school district could include those programs at their district within their track one project. But then for childcare centers and like preschools that meet the definition of childcare center in the RFA, then that are serving like 0 through 5 year olds primarily, that would be when track three is the track for those childcare centers to apply. And then alternatively, if you're not a childcare center yourself as your own organization, but you're a technical assistance organization that works with with ECE providers, such as childcare centers or family childcare homes, then your organization would be eligible to apply in track three as a TA organization. And we have a list where it says like see section 1.2 definitions in the RFA. We can put the link in the chat to that page of the RFA that lists the different types of organizations that would be eligible. So like a nonprofit organization would be eligible, a tribal-based nonprofit organization would be eligible as a Farm to ECETA org.
Did you say for track three is 0 through 3 or 0 to 5?
Yeah, it's for primarily serving 0 through 5 year olds.
0 to 5.
Yeah.
And another question I have, if it's okay, can an organization or a school apply for more than one track?
That's a really good question. So this round, eligible entities are limited to submitting one application in one funding track. So the same entity would not be able to submit multiple applications like in one track or across different tracks. However, if there are like different entities in your community that are separate, but maybe work together, you know, as long as they each meet the eligibility criteria for the track that they're interested in, those different organizations could all apply. It would just have to be that the projects are not like duplicating each other. And then also that the projects, they can totally be complementary, but would need to be able to like stand on their own as well in case one of the projects got funded, but another did not. Yeah, does that help? I'm not quite sure if that did.
No, I mean, it is always very difficult to determine eligibility,
Yeah.
and we definitely want to be clear, you know, which track. And so the question is, this facility, if we were kind of, you know, in between, then can we apply for both? But what I'm hearing is that no, we have to pick either 1 or 3. I don't think we fall under 2 or 4. So we need to pick either 1 or 3. And I think it's maybe best if I'll send you some email with the website and so you can take a full look.
Yeah.
This is harder to explain without looking. So that's really helpful.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for doing that. Eligibility is always so nuanced. We try
Yeah.
to make it simple, but then it's like, yeah, it's very nuanced. So thank you for following up with us. We appreciate that. Any other questions?
One more question, if you don't mind. So if the school is new, it will be opening June or, you know, the new school year in August. Would that be eligible under this grant? Because I don't remember when the grant will start. Is it September or when is it going to start the funding?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So yeah, the application is due April 4th. And then we have an estimated timeline on the grant webpage that says the grant term is estimated to start in November 2024. So that's the like estimated projected date at the moment. But yeah, in terms of the tribal school or the school opening in a few months, yeah, that would be great if you could include that in your email so we can make sure to look into that and get a specific answer to it.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Great questions. And then I see Rob's hand. Welcome.
Thanks, Amy. I had asked a question at the last session, and then I started thinking about it, and then I had some more questions. But for prior awardees for the Incubator grant, so for a producer, for instance, some of the awardees have reached out to me interested in applying again. Are there guidelines for what could be eligible projects for them? So they can't use their current project, right? So like if it was to expand services to another school, would that be something that would be eligible? Because a lot of them have asked about staffing,
Mhm.
being able to get funding for staffing, but it would there are some questions because it sounded like everything needs to be completely separate. Or were there any guidelines or like for producers and then for schools too, if they wanted to either expand their current project or do a new project?
Yeah, super great question. And I'm super happy to share that we do have guidance.
Okay, good.
So yeah, let me actually screen share it, and then we can put the links in the chat too. So
Perfect.
let me find that. Okay, here we go. So in the RFA, it's on page 39, and I'll pull that up here. And then we also have, like, complementary to this, we have a previous grant recipient's decision tree on the webpage.
Okay.
And so we'll pop that link in the chat as well. But this page, it's like, yeah, it's almost a page just kind of going through if an applicant is a previous grant recipient, just like all of the different things to keep in mind.
Hmm.
So yeah, this would be a great page to reference. And then also that previous grant recipient's decision tree is like a visualization in case that's helpful as well. So first it talks about eligibility. So if the entity meets the eligibility criteria, and that's, you know, based on earlier in the RFA for each track,
Yep.
then it is eligible to apply in this round. But then it has these like important notes like about being up to date with grant reporting and stuff like that to be eligible for consideration. And then it has this language about proposed projects, or the applicants must describe how the proposed project will supplement but not replace the existing project. And so,
Okay.
and then we go into what that means in case
Okay.
it's like not clear. So we have this definition of like what counts as supplementing and what would be considered replacing. And then we also talk about, you know, like if the grant terms are going to be overlapping between the two projects, if the second proposal is awarded, then like the two different options there. And this is the stuff that the previous grant recipient's decision tree also includes like in a visual format in case this is just like too much words.
Okay.
um,
Good.
yeah, so hopefully that's all helpful.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'll take a look at those.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, great question. And then I see Madeline's hand. Welcome, Madeline.
Hi, thank you. Um, I have a few questions looking over the grant application the other day and was hoping to get your help on that. The first thing is with the California Farm to School grant application, it says that it needs 4 team members for the ECE project. And I just wanted to learn a little bit more about that. It shows that you need to fill out 4 separate team members, their roles. Is that a need, a necessity for this grant that you have to have 4 team members? It said something around like you can have the same member, you know, do a few things, but for, yeah, this grant, is it necessary to have 4 separate team members?
That's such a great question. Thanks for asking. So I'll go to that section. I think this is what you're referencing, the Farm to ECE project team. Oh, sorry, is this track 3? I'm not sure if I assumed that.
Yeah, that is. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
it is.
No, you might have said.
Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, so you're right. It requires these 4 different team members, and it has a description of like member 1, safe food procurement lead, and then what that entails. Member 2, member 3, member 4.
Yeah.
And it does say each project should have at least 4 team members, but the same person may fill multiple roles. So what that means is, like, say the same person in your organization serves as the California food procurement lead and the food education lead, or the same person is going to be the California food procurement lead as well as the farm to ECE project lead. That is what this is saying. That would be allowed. It's kind of up to your organization to determine which individual is going to be filling each role, as long as it's in alignment with these descriptions. So it could be that it's actually like 3 individuals, but 4 like team member roles, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're a small organization and I kind of do a lot of this sort of thing. So I didn't know if it would look poorly if it was just myself and one other person to be doing this, or if you really need to have four members. Does it matter if it's like 2 people or, for these small organizations and the funding amount?
Yeah, great question. As long as the 4 team members are filled and you're, responding to what each of those questions is asking for in the application and like meeting these descriptions, then yeah, it's okay, totally okay if the same person is filling 1 role or 2 roles or something like that. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And then also, in the application, it shows that letter of support for the ECE programs that you are planning on working with and supporting with these funds. And it said for a letter of support. And I'm looking, we're working out the budget, but it could be upwards to 25 schools if I'm lucky and able to use some matching funds, which would be wonderful. Is it required to get 25 schools to send their letter of support? These are small family childcare providers, or could I get a few? Just wanting to know how many to upload and if the requirement is every single school.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Super exciting about all those partnerships. So yeah, based on how this is written, in question 6 is where you would be naming each of the sites that your proposed project will serve, whether they're centers or family childcare homes. And then, yeah, the way it's written is that the letters of support would be from each ECE site that the project will serve. So it would be from each of the sites that you list in that prior question.
Okay.
Yeah, please let us know if there are any challenges with like the upload button, if there ends up being a cap or something.
No worries. And
yeah.
And are you okay with letters of support being in Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. And then one last question. I was on the last call or one of the previous calls, and from what I remember hearing that this funding, once it's given out, there is the reporting, but is there a time frame, like a strict time frame of when those funds need to be spent? Like a time frame in which all the funds need to be spent out and shown, or is there the ability to kind of stagger those funds depending on kind of in-kind donations and whatnot?
Yeah, super great question. So the grant term is up to like a 24-month period.
Okay.
And so the project like expenditures would need to occur like during, between whatever the start and end dates are of that 24-month period. But there's no requirement that you like spend a certain percentage in the first quarter and like another percentage in the next quarter. It would be like up to you as you're, developing your proposed project work plan and your proposed project budget to like think through what your like, proposed estimated timeline is within the 24-month period that you would want to be spending the funds. So yeah, it would be up to you as long as it's within the grant term start and end dates.
Okay, and a follow-up with that, if the grant is accepted, is there the ability, let's say the grant was accepted and will be awarded, is there any in between that time period of acceptance and funding given an update for the budget or update for timelines to be able to make any augmentations or shifts?
That's a good question. Between when if awarded between the award announcement and then the execution of the grant agreement.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not sure
Okay.
on that one. Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah,
No
if
worries.
you email us that question, we can make sure to look into it and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you so much for your help, Amy.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Okay, Lizzie, welcome.
Hi, thank you. So I just have two sort of quick questions. This is our first time going through this, so I apologize if these are repetitive or whatnot. So my first question is, we recently started working with schools last year, and as part of that, had gotten a lot of feedback that they needed individual serving sizes of our products, so like 2-ounce bags. So working with those schools, we custom created a whole new line of packaging, new product basically just for that. So is that an example of something that we could submit, like those packaging costs, the print, all of that stuff, given that they're dedicated only for schools, or would that sort of fall out of the scope of this, the grant available?
Ooh, good question. Just before I answer, which track is this for? Is this track 4?
I'm sorry, track 4. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Awesome. So, yeah, I'm just gonna pull up the allowable costs for track 4. Oops, not that one. Let's see. So, it's pretty broad what's allowable.
Yeah.
So this is the list. It starts on page 32 and goes for a few more pages. So the first thing is that farm to school infrastructure, equipment, and supplies costs are allowable as long as they're for any of these purposes. So the first one may be kind of in alignment with what you're talking about. If it's to increase production, processing, and or distribution capacity to sell California grown or produced whole or minimally processed foods to schools, then it would be allowable. So yeah, so any supplies to do that purpose would be allowable.
Awesome. That's great news. And then my second question is that, right now we're working with about, let's say 15 schools here in the Central Valley. So we can get those letters of intent, and obviously we're hoping to grow and go into more schools. So with the money that we get, hopefully from the grant, could we only use that to support the business we have now that we know, or could it also be used to support us as we go into new schools and expand within that?
Ooh, yeah. So as long as the project costs are for achieving the farm to school project objectives in your project work plan, then it's allowable. As as long as
it's for a school, even if we don't know like what school it's going to be right at this moment when we submit it. Still good. Okay, great.
Yeah. So in terms of the application, it's required to whichever schools you're going to be partnering with the project, and there is the list of what's eligible, like a public school district operating the National School Lunch Program, that's an SFA, like that would be an allowable partner. And so then, you would need to partner with at least one of those and then provide a letter of intent from their school, school meal director. And so, yeah, if you're then if part of your project work plan is to then, try to expand and work with more of those entities, then that would be an allowable part of the project work plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome questions. Okay, I don't see any more hands at the moment, so I'm going to go to the chat and see if any came through there. Let's see. Hi, Silas. Thanks for joining us. I work for a community college and we have a farm. Would our farm be eligible for track 4 as a producer? Awesome question. So let me go to the track 4 eligibility. Sorry, hope this isn't causing dizziness. So track 4 is for food producers in California, and we define that up here as a person, group of individuals, nonprofit org, or California Native American tribe that leases, rents, or owns land in California and cultivates crops, raises livestock, and or uses indigenous food production practices on this land, or a California seafood harvester. So if the farm that you mentioned meets that definition, then yes, absolutely, you would be eligible to apply to track 4 as a California food producer. Let's see. Does that help, or is it a little more nuanced, like the type of entity that operates the farm, since it's a community college? Let's see if
So, hi, Amy. Sorry, I received a message in the chat. Silas said that helps. I'll check with our administration.
Oh, awesome. Okay, thanks, Rachel and Silas. Yeah, let us know if if you need more specifics in terms of if the specific entity is eligible, and we're happy to look into it. Okay. Let's see. Next question from Ween. Great question. To follow up on track 3 staffing, are there a minimum required FTEs? No. So in track 3 and in all 4 funding tracks, staff costs for for the farm to school project are allowable. There's no minimum requirement that a certain percentage of a staff member's time be for the farm to school project. It's just important to keep in mind that only the percentage of the staff person's time that is for the farm to school project would be an allowable cost under the grant. So if the staff person is like working 25% of the time, just as an example, on the project, and the other 75% is on other unrelated projects, then that 25% would be an allowable, or up to the 25% would be an allowable cost. But their time that's on other projects would not be allowable under this grant. Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat. So again, opening up if there are any questions, raised hands, or if you'd like to pop it in the chat, feel free. Oh, hi, Elena. Go ahead. Welcome.
Hey, Amy. Yeah, I was starting to type and then I was like, this is too long. I'm gonna ask it. Yeah, in terms of staff costs, while we're on that topic, for the indirect costs, are there specific things that would be defined within that? Like if someone's just doing grant reporting, would we just want to try to allocate time spent on that? Or could it also include the time that that person's spending to coordinate the various aspects of the project, talk to contractors, talk to their employees? Like, would that also be included as indirect?
Oh, good question. Which track is this for?
Oh, sorry, track 4. So the
Track 4?
producer grant. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so let me go to that one. So for track 4, as long as the staff labor costs are like directly for farm to school activities, and there are a bunch of examples here, that would be allowable under direct costs under the farm to school staff labor cost section.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is on page, let's see, the bottom of page 33 of the RFA, in case that's helpful. And then in terms of indirect costs, and then there's just a note, like for them to be direct costs, staff labor costs must be directly related to farm to school activities. And then in terms of indirect costs, I'm just going to pull up the definition of indirect costs because I think that'll be better than if I try to explain it on the spot.
For sure.
So the definition, and the RFA links to these definitions. It says indirect costs are costs incurred for common or joint objectives that cannot be identified specifically with a particular project, program, or organizational activity. Typical indirect costs include, but are not limited to, administrative or clerical staff costs, rent, utilities and internet service, cellular and landline telephone service, general office supplies, and insurance. So if the cost instead fits under this bucket, then it would be allowable under the indirect cost section of the budget. And for that, it's up to 30% of direct costs that are allowable for indirect costs. So that just means up to 30% of all of the other budget categories when you're filling out your proposed project budget.
Okay. So in terms of like clerical, that would probably cover the reporting because you're reporting across all projects and activities that are happening, probably.
I think that, yeah, if it falls into this bucket where the clerical staff costs are cannot be identified specifically with this farm to school grant project, then I think that's where it falls into this indirect cost bucket. But if it's like, if it's any of these where it's like, specifically managing administration related to selling whole or minimally processed food to schools, like for this farm to school project, that's where it falls under the direct costs for farm to school staff and labor.
Okay, I think I
Yeah.
gotcha. So
Yeah, it's confusing for me too.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Any other questions? All questions are welcome. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we'll end this session a little bit early. And of course, if something pops into your mind in like a half an hour or something, you are totally welcome to email us at that email inbox, cafarmtoschool@cdfa.ca.gov. And then there will also be another session next Thursday if you would like to come back and join us again and ask more questions. So thank you all so much for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.